The way I see family violence and how it has creeped into our community is the destruction of families. And I think it evolves from alcohol and drugs, and not knowing how to parent when they're struggling, and not understanding that they're a product of, the residential school. Their parents were there, their grandparents were there. No fault of their parents, no fault of the grandparents, the fault of the system, right? It's a system that failed and is still failing today, as we know it.
I'm thinking back in the day, I was around back in the day when we had dirt roads, one street light. The houses were built by community members or people that saved up their money, and the community came together and built the house.
Our doors never used to be locked in those days, right? Now we have to do it for safety reasons. But everybody knew everybody. There were many, to us, grandmas that used to live in our community. And we were probably about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we would go visit each one of them every day when we weren't in school. And we'd go sit, and we never knew if they wanted us there or not, but they did. They would have tea all the time. And they would always say, hi, munt, and talk the language, right?
It was a lot of living off the land. I remember going on a canoe. I was 3 years old, but I remember it. And my grandpa would say, sit down, keep still. I'd be sitting up front like this, and the fish net was in the middle, and he'd be in the back poling up the river, eh?
Back then, we did have freedom to explore, go to the river, go fishing, 12, 13 by then. Parents' teachings are, you live with your consequences, good or bad. That was Mom's thing. Well, she had 11 children, right? And, she'd tell you once, and after that's like, don't come crying to me if anything happens to you. So, you have to learn the hard way.
There was a real sense of belonging. This is our community. This is our people. We're here, we're all together. We're all one. Families looked after families. If there were problems going on, the parents would meet. And then I'd have kids staying at the house, or my mom would have kids staying at the house, and you just kind of dealt with things that way. There was never any like social workers, or we got to do this, or we got to call, the parents just met together. And then when things were resolved, kids would go back home. We have a revolving door, and that's kind of lost today. A lot of people don't know that. And I think it's probably because of the residential school and the day school. I think what I've seen over time is families who are products of the residential school had a really hard time being able to respect men and fathers and women and mothers.
I remember looking around the reserve. I was quite conscious of space and time by then, so I might have been 11 or 12. Counting how many houses people, rather than counting how many houses people drank at, I counted how many people didn't, and it was less than 5. And so I was conscious of that, and it's like thinking, what are we going to do?
I look at family wellness as just being there, no matter what, for your family, and being a family is something that I cherish. I never realized a lot of things until later, breaking stigmas and breaking cycles. I think identifying trauma and identifying certain emotions or stages that people go through life. I really worry for our women, the violence against women, domestic violence, but I also worry about our young men as well. I think there's challenges, we have certain individuals that may be incarcerated in jail for you know, they get out and they're back in there in a couple months because they're stuck in a cycle. And like I said, I'm confident we're going down a road where we're breaking cycles, but how are we going to do it?
Like my teacher said, we can't change anyone. They have to change themselves, but we can stop letting things hurt us. So whether it be a family that's, you know, a man or a wife that's in domestic violence situations, you know, until they learn to love themselves enough to leave, that's what they have to do, right? So, or if they're into drugs and alcohol like that young man was, he went to treatment, he got sober, he got off the hard drugs, helped him then, hey?
What is our responsibility in building this foundation, this strong foundation for our youth? I feel like our people, especially our youth, our babies, they need to know the history, what our people went through. Residential school, it's something that our people persevered through and became strong from, you know, I mean, if I could look at, if there's one good thing, it's the strength of our people, and we know how strong we are.
I think, you know, we got our stories, and they weren't legends, they were facts. Getting back to the family tree. If anybody does that, there's so much. It's not just names, putting names down. That's what I thought. You actually get to know each person there and how they lived and how they carried themselves. But it's educating in our cultural ways to understand how to do that.
Each generation has told a story. Each generation has added to our strength and the strength of the Squamish people.
You know, like I was saying, at a more mature age, I really identified with our culture and our traditions. But I think we're more in a generation where our kids are actually learning it from birth, of being connected to, let's just say, the first words they hear when they're in this world is Sxwixwtn Nachum, with someone saying I love you in our language. That human connection that we have to you know, people, but also the land, and is a big value. And I think these are teachings that are coming back more alive.
Culture is a foundation. You know, it's a foundation of who we are and where we come from and what we believe in. And if we don't have a culture, we're non-existent. So when we look at family violence too, it's a huge piece that's missing in the way that, you know, we are working with families right now, simply because we're just getting back to the learning all of the cultural ways, right? And our traditional values, you know, that a lot of them don't know.
It's hard to say, you know, like, how do we reach them, you know? I think IS Munman does a lot of good, has a lot of those beginning steps, you know. They have the camps where we teach the young kids, just like Canoe, we start with the young kids. It has the family programs, it teaches them how to be on the land, teaches them how to do the spirit baths, the shokums, you know. They learn how to use their hands to weave, to make drums, the things our ancestors did. Then our ancestors are with them. If they get on a canoe, they go to a canoe journey, or they go to canoe races, the ancestors are with them, and they're going to help them.
Yeah, when we look at family wellness and healing within our community, I think what it comes down to is really the roots and the foundational pieces of what's important to us. Everything that we do is to walk alongside people in a good way, in health and healing, and it's grounded in the Sxwixwtn. It's grounded in good, genuine relationship to understand what does somebody need. You know, help me learn from you. Help me learn what it is that you're looking for. It's not about a strict curriculum that's come from somewhere else. It's guided by the teachings. It's guided by the knowledge keepers and the elders and the wisdom that is all. The stories, the songs, the legends. so much of what happened back in history is the crux of what is happening today with our children, youth, and families. Where is the pathway to healing? How can we create safe spaces for healing to take place, where they can be wrapped, that they asemko to know that they are loved and they don't need to be on this pathway alone. I think everybody needs to do it in their own way, but they don't necessarily have to be alone.
So we've heard from a lot of different voices across the community, elders, knowledge keepers, and I want to talk a little bit about Chep. Chep is a collective response from women to build awareness and knowledge around family violence, about how we can help families find a pathway to healing. A lot of our programs offer specific things for youth, specific things for early years, specific things for parents, but Chep is about bringing the family unit all together onto the land to learn together, to be educated together, to create a safe space for families to come, to access resources, to seek support, to get education around family healing, and that may look like many different things in the future. One of those ideas is creating a physical space where families can come and be on the land in traditional territory, so that it's not just about the parents, it's not just about the youth, not just about the child. It's about the entire collective family coming together. Our families already know what they need, and we just want to be there to walk alongside them, to support them, a pathway towards healing.
That's how Indigenous people are taught in the Longhouse, about family laws, about how we conduct ourselves, how we get along, and what is going to work for us. Kwétsiw. We come from good people, and I think it's important that people understand who they are and where they come from. There might be things that have happened that have disconnected them from their roots and from that knowledge, but they do need to know they come from good people and they have a whole community that loves and supports them. If we don't do it together, then it's just not going to work.
So I was just remembering how far we've come, and the young people have come. I'm so proud of them, and how the change is happening. The weavers have come back, and the language is coming back. Our songs are coming back.
Our people always think 7 generations ahead. How did they raise their consciousness to think that, despite what they were going through? Instilling that in us.
If we're not going to think that way, the way that our ancestors thought, how far is our culture going to go? How far is our language going to go? How far are we going to go with all the teachings that are so important to live? And I know, because the culture saved my life.
I think we're in that time, we're in that time that our community and our people are going to change, because you can feel it. Everybody has a role, everybody has a few words that they can share.